My cousin publicly embarrassed my autistic son in front of dozens of people, so we left. Shortly after, she contacted CPS and tried to have my son removed from my care, not realizing how quickly the situation could shift. When my cousin Vanessa announced her wedding, my son Mikey was the first person I told. He has semi-low functioning autism, and more often than not, friends or acquaintances specifically ask that he not attend events. As a result, we rarely go anywhere together, but I assumed family would be different. When I told him, he started jumping up and down, clapping his hands. "Really, Daddy? Really? I can go?" When I answered with an enthusiastic yes, he jumped into my arms and we spun around. One aspect of his autism is that he finds immense joy in small things. On the way to the wedding rehearsal, I carefully prepared him. No talking during the ceremony. Try to stay quiet. It's the bride's day, not ours. He listened closely, and I believed everything would be fine. Halfway through the rehearsal, Mikey began smiling widely. He only does that when he's truly happy. I gently squeezed his hand as if to say, "I'm happy too." We stayed completely silent. But when Vanessa reached the front of the aisle, she abruptly said, "Excuse me, what is he doing here?" My heart sank. I looked at Mikey, still smiling, unaware she was referring to him. No one spoke up. Instead of continuing the rehearsal, Vanessa turned to her groom and shouted, "I thought you told him not to come." She pointed directly at Mikey, and he began to tear up. Guests whispered. I noticed a few looks of disapproval directed at her, but most people seemed to agree with her reaction, nodding as if Mikey's presence was unacceptable. I wanted to respond with anger, but I chose restraint. I needed to be a steady example for my son. So we quietly walked out. Outside the church, Mikey had a meltdown. "Why would she say that about you, Daddy? That was so mean." I was grateful he didn't realize it was about him. "Some people are unhappy with themselves," I told him calmly. Fortunately, this was only the rehearsal. 2 days later, the actual wedding took place. Mikey believed the rehearsal had been the real ceremony, so he didn't question it when I left him with a babysitter that day. I value marriage, so I allowed Vanessa to enjoy the first half of her wedding day without interruption. During dinner, I tapped my glass to make a speech. The room fell silent. Vanessa mouthed, "Thank you for not bringing him." I smiled, but not for the reason she assumed. As you can see, I'm here without my wonderful son, Mikey. The air grew tense. Many of you didn't want him here today, but he still wanted to share a few words. I played a voice recording I had taken earlier. In simple 7-year-old language, Mikey spoke about how happy he was for Vanessa and her husband. His voice was full of genuine joy. I felt tears forming, and several others did as well. Vanessa looked visibly upset, but she raised her glass along with everyone else. What I didn't know was that this moment would be followed by something far more serious. Less than 24 hours later, there was a knock at my door. It wasn't Vanessa. It was CPS. They asked a few vague questions before stepping inside to inspect my home. I struggled to understand what was happening. The caseworker began writing notes on a clipboard. Mikey's mattress without a bed frame used to prevent sensory overstimulation. Noted. Plastic covering on furniture due to occasional accidents. Noted. Safety locks on cupboards to protect him from sharp objects. All noted, all recorded as potential concerns. I tried explaining his autism. She quietly muttered, "That's what they all say," before contacting her supervisor. When she ended the call, she informed me they were issuing an emergency removal order and placing Mikey with his closest relative. I immediately suggested his grandmother. The next 72 hours were overwhelming. I felt helpless and furious. I was certain Vanessa was involved. This was no longer about a wedding invitation. It was about my son's safety and stability. Sitting in my empty home, surrounded by Mikey's toys and clothes, I began making calls. First to a lawyer specializing in family court and disability rights. Then to my mother, who confirmed Mikey had not been placed with her. Then to his developmental pediatrician, who was outraged when she heard what happened. The following morning, I gathered every document related to Mikey's care. Medical records, therapy evaluations, school IEPs, pediatric notes. My hands shook as I organized them. I kept thinking about where he was. Was he receiving his medication? Did they understand his sensory needs? Did he have his blanket at night? I contacted his developmental pediatrician, Dr. Chen, asking for a formal letter outlining his accommodations. She was furious. I've treated Mikey for 5 years. Those accommodations are medically necessary, not neglect, she said. She promised a letter within the hour and offered to testify. I also reached out to my neighbor Morgan, a special education teacher who has known Mikey since he was 4. She immediately offered a character reference. "This is absurd," she said. "You're one of the most dedicated parents I know." By noon, I was meeting with attorney Elizabeth Reyes, who specializes in cases involving children with disabilities. She took detailed notes as I explained everything, from the rehearsal incident to the CPS visit. "You believe this report was retaliation for the recording?" she asked. "The timing is too precise," I replied. "Less than 24 hours after the wedding." She wasn't surprised. False CPS reports used for revenge are more common than people realize. The emergency removal requires a hearing within 72 hours. We'll prepare documentation and witnesses. In the meantime, I'll file for emergency visitation. Next, I visited Mikey's school. The principal, Mrs. Taylor, was shocked and immediately offered to document his progress and our involvement. "Anyone who watches you together can see how much you care," she said. Later, my mother called. Vanessa had been telling relatives that Mikey had a severe meltdown at the rehearsal and that I failed to manage him. She was portraying me as neglectful and incapable of handling his needs. That likely triggered the CPS report. That evening, I received a Facebook message from Thomas, Vanessa's new husband. "I had nothing to do with this. I'm sorry." I saved the message. Soon after, I received a call from Jordan, the assigned CPS caseworker. He informed me Mikey was placed with a foster care family experienced with autistic children and that I was approved for a supervised visit the following day at 2 p.m. Relief washed over me. I immediately informed Elizabeth, who cautioned me to remain calm during the visit. "They'll observe everything," she warned. "Stay composed, even if Mikey is distressed." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept walking into Mikey's room, expecting to see him there. The empty bed was painful. Eventually, I lay on his floor just to feel close to him. The next day, I arrived at the CPS office early, holding his favorite comfort item, a soft blue octopus he calls Squish. The waiting room was bleak. When they finally brought Mikey in, I had to control myself from running to him. He looked exhausted with dark circles under his eyes, but when he saw me, his face brightened. "Daddy!" He ran into my arms, and I held him tightly. Jordan observed quietly. I greeted Mikey calmly. He spoke rapidly about the unfamiliar house and routines that felt different. It was painful knowing he didn't understand why he couldn't come home. When our hour ended, the separation was devastating. He clung to me, crying intensely. I used our usual calming techniques, but nothing worked. As his distress escalated, I couldn't help worrying how it might appear under observation. "I want to go home," he cried as a staff member gently tried to separate him from me. "I want my daddy." It took all my strength not to break down as I watched them carry my hysterical son down the hallway. Once he was out of sight, I sat in my car and cried. When I got home, I checked my email and saw that Dr. Chen had sent her letter. She clearly stated that every accommodation in Mikey's home was appropriate and medically recommended. I forwarded it to Elizabeth just as my phone rang again. It was my mom. "I just got a call from CPS. They're doing a home inspection tomorrow to see if I can take Mikey temporarily." That was progress. If Mom's house was approved, Mikey would at least be with family while we worked to bring him home. That's good news. Did they say anything else? There was a pause. They mentioned additional concerns about your care. My stomach tightened. Additional concerns? From who? They wouldn't say, she replied, but I have a strong suspicion. Vanessa was escalating. I could only imagine what new accusations she was making. Frustrated, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I called her directly. To my surprise, she answered. "What do you want?" Her tone was cold. "I want to know why you're trying to have my son taken away," I said, working to keep my voice steady. "I'm not doing anything except raising legitimate concerns," she replied sharply. "Mikey needs professional help, not excuses." "He has professional help. He sees doctors and therapists. And he still can't behave in public," she cut in. The way you let him act at my rehearsal shows you can't manage him." I was stunned. "He was completely quiet until you started yelling." "That's not how I remember it," she said confidently, "and neither do most of the guests." That's when I understood. She was gathering statements against me. I ended the call before I said something I would regret. I immediately informed Elizabeth. She advised me not to contact Vanessa again and to document everything. I spent the evening creating a detailed timeline, starting from the wedding invitation through the CPS visit. The hearing was scheduled for the following day. Elizabeth met me outside the courthouse, composed and prepared. "We have solid documentation," she reassured me, "and Dr. Chen will testify by phone." Inside, I saw Vanessa seated in the hallway with an older woman I didn't recognize. She smirked when she saw me. The courtroom was smaller and less formal than I expected. Judge Williams reviewed the CPS report while Elizabeth presented our evidence, letters from Dr. Chen, Mrs. Taylor, Morgan, and all of Mikey's medical documentation. "Your Honor," Elizabeth began, "the accommodations flagged by CPS are medically recommended for a child with Mikey's needs. They are not indicators of neglect, but of attentive parenting." The CPS worker who had inspected my home testified next. Under questioning, she admitted she had limited training in autism and had not consulted a specialist before determining the accommodations were inappropriate. Dr. Chen's testimony was direct and thorough. She explained each accommodation and why it was necessary. She emphasized Mikey's progress under my care. "I have patients whose parents refuse to implement these strategies," she stated firmly. "Mr. Williams has gone beyond standard expectations to support his son." Then the CPS attorney called Vanessa. She described the rehearsal very differently, claiming Mikey was disruptive and uncontrolled. She alleged that I had handled him roughly when he became upset. "I've been worried about his parenting for years," she said, projecting concern. "I contacted CPS because I genuinely fear for Mikey's safety." Elizabeth's cross-examination was precise. "Isn't it true," she asked, "that you contacted CPS less than 24 hours after Mr. Williams played a recording of his son at your reception?" "The timing is coincidental," Vanessa replied. "And wasn't Mikey specifically excluded from your wedding due to his autism?" "It was an adult-only event," she said. "Yet children were present, including your flower girl, ring bearer, and other guest children. So it was not adult-only. Mikey was the only child excluded." Vanessa flushed. Elizabeth further established that Vanessa had limited interaction with Mikey and no professional background in child development. "One final question," Elizabeth said. "Did you tell guests that Mr. Williams should not bring Mikey to the rehearsal?" Vanessa hesitated. "I may have mentioned it." Elizabeth concluded that Vanessa had deliberately excluded a child based on disability and then reported his father after feeling embarrassed. The judge sustained an objection to the phrasing, but his expression suggested concern. In closing, Elizabeth emphasized that while autism-related accommodations may appear unusual to those unfamiliar, every element in my home was designed for Mikey's well-being. The only evidence against me came from a witness with clear bias and questionable timing. After a brief recess, Judge Williams returned. "Mr. Williams," he said, "I'm dismissing the emergency removal order. Based on the evidence, I see no indication of neglect or harm." Relief washed over me. "However," he continued, "I am ordering a follow-up home visit by a developmental disability specialist. Until then, your son will stay with his grandmother with unlimited visitation for you." It wasn't complete resolution, but it was significant progress. As we left, Vanessa passed by, visibly angry. "This isn't over," she muttered. Elizabeth responded calmly, "If any further false reports are made, we will pursue legal action." That afternoon, I picked Mikey up from the foster home. The foster mother was kind, but admitted he had been struggling and asking for me constantly. When Mikey saw me, he hesitated at first, as if unsure, but when I told him we were going to Grandma's house, he relaxed. "And you'll be there too?" he asked. "Every day," I assured him. He fell asleep in the car, holding Squish. I kept checking the rearview mirror, grateful to have him close again. At my mom's house, we set up his temporary room. I brought his weighted blanket, visual schedule board, and favorite books. Mom had prepared his preferred foods. "I always knew she'd cause trouble," Mom said quietly. I mentioned Vanessa's warning outside the courtroom. Mom shook her head. "We're prepared now." That night, I slept on an air mattress beside Mikey's bed. Around midnight, he woke up crying from a nightmare about being taken away again. I held him until he fell asleep. The next morning, Jordan called to confirm the specialist's home visit at my house the following day. Mikey would be present so they could observe our normal routines. For what it's worth, Jordan added, after reviewing Dr. Chen's letter and the judge's ruling, I don't expect issues. I spent the day cleaning and organizing. Mom helped me prepare medication charts and therapy schedules. That evening, I received a text from an unknown number. Check your email. An email followed with a video attachment. It was footage from the wedding reception. It showed my speech and Mikey's recording, but also captured Vanessa speaking intensely to guests afterward. She then pulled out her phone and typed something. The timestamp on the video was 9:47 p.m. The CPS report had been filed at 9:52 p.m. 5 minutes later, I forwarded the video to Elizabeth. Her reply was immediate. This is significant. Who sent it? I responded to the unknown number. The answer surprised me. Thomas, Vanessa's husband. I'm sorry, he wrote. I tried to stop her. I remained cautious. Why help me? Because this is wrong, he replied. She's been determined to retaliate since the reception. She even persuaded a bridesmaid to submit a false statement. I informed Elizabeth. She advised me to ask if he would provide a formal statement, but not to pressure him. When I asked, he responded after an hour, I'll consider it, but she can't know. The next day, the specialist, Dr. Ramirez, conducted the home visit. She was experienced and immediately interacted respectfully with Mikey. She reviewed his room, sensory corner, communication cards, and daily routines. After 2 hours of observation, she told me, "You've created a supportive environment. My report will reflect that." That evening, Thomas texted again. "Vanessa knows someone sent the video. She's furious. Be careful." Before I could reply, Jordan called. "We've received another report," he said. My heart sank. "What is it now?" "The caller claims you are medicating your son unnecessarily." "That's completely false," I said. "Every medication is prescribed by Dr. Chen." "We're not taking action on this," Jordan assured me, given the previous findings. It was clear CPS was beginning to recognize a pattern. Elizabeth saw it as beneficial. "Multiple false reports strengthen a harassment case," she explained. "We should discuss a restraining order." The following day, Dr. Ramirez's official report arrived. It was overwhelmingly positive, confirming that my home met Mikey's developmental needs and that his care was appropriate. Jordan called that afternoon. "Based on the specialist's assessment, we're closing the case. Mikey can return home immediately." Relief overcame me. Off the record, Jordan added, "I apologize for how this was initially handled." I drove to my mom's house with the news. Mikey reacted with visible excitement, flapping his hands and smiling widely. Mom hugged me tightly. As we packed his things, my phone buzzed again. It was Thomas. "CPS closed the case. Vanessa is planning something else. Be careful." I stared at Thomas's message for a long moment, my hands beginning to shake. Just when it felt like everything was finally settling, Vanessa was planning something else. I deleted the text and put my phone away, not wanting my mom to see how unsettled I was. Mikey was moving around the room, happily packing his dinosaur toys and talking nonstop about going home. "Daddy, can we get ice cream on the way? The kind with rainbow sprinkles?" He was nearly vibrating with excitement. I forced a steady smile. "Of course, buddy. Extra sprinkles." I ruffled his hair while Mom gave me a quiet, searching look. "Everything okay?" she asked softly as Mikey sorted his stuffed animals by size. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I just want to get him home." We loaded the car and Mom hugged Mikey for a long time. I thanked her repeatedly for everything she had done. The drive was filled with Mikey's excited chatter, and we stopped for ice cream just as promised. Walking back into our house together felt surreal after the stress of the past week. That night, once Mikey was settled into his own bed again, I sat at the kitchen table and thought carefully. Vanessa clearly wasn't finished. I couldn't keep reacting to her moves. It was time to take control. The next morning, while Mikey ate breakfast, I called Elizabeth. "I need to know my options," I said. "Thomas warned me Vanessa is planning something else." "We now have multiple documented false reports," Elizabeth replied without hesitation. "That qualifies as harassment, possibly defamation depending on what she said. We can file for a restraining order or pursue civil action." I just want her to leave us alone, I said, watching Mikey arrange his cereal into precise patterns. The quickest step is a cease and desist letter, she said. From a lawyer, it may be enough. If not, it strengthens our case. I agreed. She promised to send it by the end of the day. I also called Dr. Chen to update her and scheduled an appointment to restore Mikey's routine. The following day, he returned to school. His teacher, Mrs. Wilson, had been supportive throughout the ordeal, sending work home and helping with his transition back. At drop-off, she pulled me aside. "We're behind you," she said. "If anyone suspicious asks about Mikey, we'll notify you immediately." I thanked her, relieved to have support. That afternoon, Elizabeth emailed the cease and desist letter. It was formal and clear, outlining Vanessa's actions and warning of legal consequences if the harassment continued. I printed it, planning to send it certified. That evening, while helping Mikey with his bath, the doorbell rang. I told him to stay put and went to check. Through the peephole, I saw Vanessa. For a brief moment, I considered ignoring it. Then I decided this might be an opportunity to address things directly. I opened the door but blocked the entrance. "What do you want?" I asked evenly. She looked different, less polished, more tired. "I need to talk," she said. "I have nothing to discuss. In fact, I was about to mail you this." I handed her the cease and desist letter. She glanced at the letterhead. "More legal threats. Mature." "You attempted to remove my son from my custody with false claims," I replied, keeping my tone controlled. "This is the legal response." Her expression hardened. "You humiliated me at my wedding." "You humiliated yourself when you shouted at a disabled child," I said calmly. "Now leave my property." I started closing the door, but she blocked it with her foot. "Wait, Thomas left me." That caught me off guard. "He left 3 days ago," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "He said he couldn't stay with someone who did what I did to Mikey." I didn't know how to respond. Any sense of vindication felt hollow. "That's between you and Thomas," I said. "It doesn't involve me or my son." "He helped you, didn't he?" she asked sharply. "The video, it had to be him." I kept my expression neutral. "It doesn't matter who sent it. What matters is that you were exposed, and this needs to stop." She straightened. "You think you've won? I've spoken to other family members. I've told them you used Mikey's condition for sympathy." I was stunned she was still trying to manipulate the narrative. "Leave," I said firmly. "People believe me." "Daddy?" Mikey's voice came from behind me. I turned. He stood in the hallway in dinosaur pajamas, hair still damp. When he saw Vanessa, his body stiffened. "It's the mean lady," he said loudly, his hands starting to flap. Vanessa looked at him, really looked at him. He began rocking slightly, his anxiety rising. "Buddy, go to your room," I said gently. "I'll come read your story." But he didn't move. Instead, he stepped forward. "You were mean to my daddy," he said, his voice shaking but steady. "At the fancy party, you yelled and made people sad." Vanessa was silent. "I didn't do anything bad," he continued. "I was quiet like Daddy said, but you were loud and scary. You shouldn't be mean. That's what my teacher says." His hands were flapping faster, but he kept speaking. I stood there, stunned. I had never seen him assert himself like that. Pride mixed with concern as his agitation increased. Vanessa looked between us, her face unreadable. Without another word, she turned and walked away. I closed the door and immediately guided Mikey back to his room. He was fully stimming now, rocking and flapping. "That was very brave," I told him gently. "I'm proud of you for using your words." It took longer than usual to settle him. We repeated his calming routine twice before he relaxed enough to sleep. As I sat beside his bed, watching him drift off, I wondered if Vanessa's visit was the something else Thomas had warned about, or if more was coming. The next morning, I received an unexpected email from Jordan at CPS. He wanted to meet regarding new developments. My stomach tightened immediately, but I agreed to meet during Mikey's school hours. We met at a coffee shop. Jordan looked uncomfortable. "I wanted to speak off the record," he said. "We received another report yesterday." I tightened my grip on my cup. "From Vanessa?" He shook his head. "No, it was filed by someone named Charles Johnson. He claimed to be your uncle." I frowned. "I don't have an uncle named Charles. The only Charles in our family." The realization hit me immediately. "That's Vanessa's father," I said slowly. "My mom's brother." Jordan nodded. "The accusations are almost identical to your niece's. The similarity is too strong to ignore." She's using her dad to file the reports now, I said, connecting the dots. She knows we're aware of what she's been doing. Under normal circumstances, we'd investigate any new report, Jordan explained. But given the established pattern in Dr. Ramirez's recent positive assessment, my supervisor has flagged this as potentially malicious. He paused. I probably shouldn't be sharing that, but I thought you deserved to know. I thanked him for the warning. My mind was already moving ahead. When I got home, I called Elizabeth immediately and relayed everything Jordan had told me. This actually strengthens our position, she said. We can now demonstrate coordinated harassment. I'd like to amend the cease and desist to include Vanessa's immediate family members. While Elizabeth handled the legal response, I decided it was time to address the situation within the family. I called my mom and explained everything: Vanessa's visit, Uncle Charles's report, the pattern forming. Mom was furious. Charles has always enabled her, she said. But this is unacceptable. I'm calling a family meeting. I tried to discourage her, concerned it might escalate matters, but she was firm. This isn't just about you and Mikey anymore. They're pulling the entire family into this. Everyone deserves the truth. The meeting was scheduled for Sunday afternoon at her house. I was anxious leading up to it, especially when Mom confirmed she had invited everyone, including Vanessa and her parents. I arranged for Mikey to have a therapy play date so he wouldn't be exposed to the tension. When Sunday arrived, more relatives showed up than I expected, extended family members I hadn't seen in years. Clearly, the situation had drawn attention. Vanessa arrived with her parents. She appeared composed, though her expression shifted when she saw the size of the gathering. Mom began without hesitation. I called this meeting because there's been a coordinated effort to harass my son and grandson, she said, and it's coming from within this family. The room fell silent. She presented everything in order: the rehearsal incident, the CPS investigations, the false allegations. She passed around copies of Dr. Ramirez's report and the cease and desist letter. And now, she concluded, looking directly at Uncle Charles, we have reason to believe others are participating in filing false reports. Uncle Charles flushed. I was only concerned about the child. You've seen Mikey twice in 3 years, Mom replied calmly. Both times at gatherings you left early. You have no understanding of his needs. Aunt Linda spoke up. Vanessa told us Mikey was completely out of control at the rehearsal, that he disrupted everything. That isn't accurate, I said clearly. He remained quiet until Vanessa raised her voice. To my surprise, one of Vanessa's bridesmaids spoke next. He's telling the truth, she said carefully. The boy was sitting quietly. Vanessa reacted. Vanessa shot her a sharp look, but before she could respond, a familiar voice interrupted. Enough. Thomas stood in the doorway. I hadn't known he planned to attend. I've watched this go too far, he said as he stepped inside. First the wedding incident, then persuading Jenna to submit a false statement, then involving your father. Vanessa tried to defend herself. He humiliated me at my wedding. After you publicly humiliated his son, Thomas responded evenly. I told you to apologize. You refused. The room shifted. Murmurs began. Several relatives exchanged uneasy looks. Aunt Maria spoke up next. I bring my daughter with Down syndrome to every family event. Are you suggesting she wouldn't have been welcome at your wedding either? The tone in the room changed quickly. One by one, family members voiced disappointment in Vanessa's behavior. Some shared past examples of exclusion or insensitivity. It was as though long-held concerns were finally being voiced openly. Eventually, Uncle Charles stood. This discussion is over, he said unsteadily. We're leaving. Before they could exit, Mom stepped forward. Let me make something clear, she said firmly. If any of you file another false report, contact CPS again, or continue spreading misinformation about my son or grandson, we will pursue every legal remedy available. And this family will know exactly what happened. Voices around the room expressed agreement. Vanessa looked around, realizing the support she once assumed was no longer there. Without another word, she left. Her parents followed. Thomas remained. I'm sorry I didn't intervene sooner, he said quietly. I hoped she would reconsider. Thank you for being honest today, I replied. It mattered. In the days that followed, something unexpected happened. Family members reached out in support. Aunt Maria invited Mikey for a play date. Uncle James, whom I hadn't spoken to in years, invited us to his lake house to fish. Instead of isolating us, Vanessa's actions had united the family. A week later, Elizabeth called. "We've received formal written agreements from Vanessa, Charles, and Linda," she said. "They've committed to ceasing all direct or indirect communication about you and Mikey. They understand that any further false reports will result in immediate legal action." "So it's actually resolved?" I asked cautiously. "It appears so," she confirmed. "How are you both?" I looked outside, where Mikey was in the yard examining insects with a magnifying glass, fully absorbed. "We're doing well," I said honestly. "Better than before." The situation had been overwhelming, but it produced something meaningful. For the first time, Mikey felt genuinely included. Family members who once kept distance were now learning about autism and adapting to his needs. 2 months later, we attended a barbecue at my cousin William's house. Mikey was hesitant at first, holding my hand as we approached. Then Aunt Maria's daughter ran over. "Come see the sprinkler. It's super splashy," she said, taking his hand. Mikey glanced at me. I nodded encouragingly. He followed her. I watched him play with the other children. His excited flapping met not with judgment, but curiosity and acceptance. Someone handed me a drink. I turned and saw Thomas beside me. "He looks happy," he said, nodding toward Mikey. "Yeah," I replied, feeling a deep, steady contentment. "He does."